Hi guys, I'm Azan.
Hi, my name is Simon.
Hi, my name is Ikwan.
Hi, I'm Jackniee.
Hello, my name is Jackson.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Global Finance Insight, the podcast where we break down major international financial issues shaping our world today. I'm Jackniee. Together, we'll be discussing one of the most significant global economic disruptions of recent years, which is the global supply chain disruption crisis from 2020 until 2023. From empty supermarket shelves to rising inflation and shipping chaos, this crisis affected businesses, government, and consumers worldwide. In today, we'll explore what caused the crisis, how government responded, its financial and economic impact, and most importantly, what lessons we can learn moving forward. So, grab your coffee, sit back, and join us. We unpack the global supply chain crisis through the lens of international finance. Let's get started!
The novel coronavirus has made its way to the United States with a confirmed case.
There's currently no vaccine outbreak.
The world economy has been rocked by a
Protect yourself at night from coronavirus.
What is global supply chain disruption? Have you ever wondered how a tiny virus could impact the flow of goods around the world? Global supply chain disruption refers to events that interrupt the movement of products and services at any stage in the supply chain. This can happen due to various reasons, including natural disasters, political conflicts, economic instability, or health crises like the COVID-19 pandemic. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed significant disruptions as factories shut down and mobility restrictions were put in place. These actions severely affected logistics and manufacturing processes. As countries began to reopen, the surge in demand led to port congestions and skyrocketing shipping costs, further straining global supply chains. The consequences of these disruptions extend beyond just economic costs. They can also contribute to inflation. When supply chains face challenges, production and transportation costs rise. These increased costs are often passed on to consumers, resulting in higher prices for everyday goods. This inflation can be particularly challenging to manage in regions with weak monetary policy frameworks. In light of these challenges, international policymakers are actively seeking ways to create more resilient supply chains. One approach is reshoring, which means bringing production back to the home country. Another strategy is friendshoring, where production is relocated to countries with stable political and economic conditions. These strategies aim to reduce vulnerability to future disruptions and maintain the stability of global trade. The rules-based multilateral trading system is essential for ensuring supply chain security. It helps lower the risk of policy-induced disruptions and keeps markets open. This access to alternative sources of supply is vital during times of crisis, helping to maintain economic stability and facilitate international trade. Understanding global supply chain disruption is crucial in today's interconnected world. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us just how fragile these systems can be. By learning from these experiences, we can work towards building a more resilient and stable global supply chain for the future.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to our podcast discussion on the global supply chain disruption crisis from 2020 until 2023. Economic crises have occurred throughout history, but this crisis was unique because it combined a global health pandemic, geopolitical conflict, and structural weaknesses in international trade system. This discussion aims to analyze the crisis from a global and regional financial perspective, apply international finance theories to understand its impact, evaluate policy response and their effectiveness, and provide lessons and recommendations for future crisis preventations. This crisis significantly affected GDP growth, inflation, liquidity, trade balance, and financial market worldwide. Now, Alfonso, can you explain the crisis background?
Yes, sure. The crisis began in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Lockdowns disrupt production, transportation, and labor supply. According to the World Bank, 2020, global GDP contracted sharply in 2020, marking one of the deepest recessions since World War II. From an international finance perspective, this represents a negative supply shock, where production capacity decreased, shifting the aggregate supply curve left.
Now that we understand the background, let's dive deeper into the root causes of this crisis. Econ, can you tell us about the causes of this crisis?
For sure. So for the global supply chain disruption, there are four major crises that causes this disruption for our global supply chain. So firstly, there are pandemic lockdown in China, known as the world manufacturing hub, implement a strict lockdown when the COVID happened. So when that happened, the global supply chain, which mainly go to China, would interrupt. So this reflects a global interdependence theory, where the economies rely heavily on cross-border production network. Besides that, there also about problem about shipping and logistics. So major ports like Los Angeles and Shanghai experience congestion. So because of the congestion, the shipping costs increased dramatically. According to the Freighten Baltic Index in 2021, container price rose more than 500%, which create a cost push in inflation, where higher production costs lead to rising prices globally. Another factor is semiconductor shortage. Company such as Toyota and Apple reduce production due to chip shortages. From this scenario, we see that vulnerability in global value chain, where one missing input can stop entire production line. And last but not least, Russia-Ukraine war in 2022, where Russia invaded Ukraine, making the global energy and food supply were disrupted. and the cost and the effect from this is the oil and gas price surge and food like wheat decline. From a financial perspective, this caused trade imbalance, exchange rate volatility, and capital market uncertainty, which reflect the Mundell-Fleming model, where external shock affect exchange rate and capital flow in open economies.
Thank you. So, how did government and financial institutions react to these global disruptions? Azrin, can you examine the policy's responses?
Yes, for sure. For government and monetary policy, government responded with expansionary fiscal policy. The United States introduced stimulus package and the Federal Reserve reduced interest rates. This follow Keynesian economic theory, where government spending increases aggregate demand during recession. However, excessive stimulus later contribute to inflation.
Okay. For the financial impact, it was severe. The first impact is inflation surge. Global inflation reached multi-decade high in 2022 to 2023. This was due to supply shortage, energy price shocks, and high demand after stimulus. The second impact is GDP is slowing down. Many countries experience slow growth due to supply bottlenecks. Developing countries will hit harder because they rely heavily on imports. And the third impact is exchange rate volatility. According to the International Finance Theory, during the uncertainty, investors move capital to safe haven currencies like dollar. This causes depreciation in emerging market currencies, increasing import costs, and this also demonstrates capital flight theory. And final impact is stock market volatility. Stock market fluctuated significantly due to uncertainty. Technology and manufacturing sectors were especially affected due to supply shortage. Liquidity stress also affected small medium enterprise. And as for my critical evaluation, while government stimulus helped prevent economic collapse, it also created long-term consequences, such as increased government debt, inflationary pressures, and asset bubbles in some market. This raises an important question. Was the policy response too aggressive?
Another issue is over-globalization. The crisis exposed weakness in just-in-time inventory systems. While globalization improved efficiency, it reduced resilience. This shows the trade-off between efficiency versus stability. Countries are now reconsidering reshoring and nearshoring strategies.
After analyzing the impact, the next important question is, what can we learn from this crisis?
Okay, the first lesson and recommendation that I can give is diversification is essential. Companies should avoid relying on one country for production.
For the second lesson, strengthen domestic industry for strategic sectors such as food, medicine, and semiconductors.
One? Wait, I'm thinking. So here, for my perspective, we can invest in digital supply chain system using AI and blockchain for transparency, at least from my side of perspective.
And also improve international cooperation instead of protectionism. This restriction wasn't global crisis.
So finally, crisis contingency planning must become part of corporate risk management. Resiliencies must be prioritized alongside cost efficiency. That brings us to the end of today's discussion of the global supply chain disruption crisis from 2020 until 2023. We've explored how to interconnect the global economy truly is and how a disruption in one region can affect the entire world. Thank you so much for listening to our Global Finance Insight. We hope today's discussion help you better understand the financial, economic, and strategic implication of global supply chain disruptions. If you found this discussion insightful, stay curious, stay informed, and keep analyzing the world through a financial lens. Until the next time, this is Joveni and the team sign off.